right, here we go. This is a great show, and I want to get to it. And last week, I went long, and then I went to the gas, and we had a technical issue. And it is something. And I don't know what age you are. I don't care what age you are. God, I just had a birthday, 27, but age doesn't matter. It's just amazing because something went wrong, and I had already gone for a long time. We had a technical thing, and I said, okay, good night. And I ended the show. And I had more people say, "Were you mad? Were you mad? You're mad. You're any emotion now." And I've noticed this. It happened. It evolved into radio. It evolved in radio. A lot of things went wrong. I blame on a guy named Michael Savage. I really think he did horrible things for radio. I like Michael, and I think Michael liked me, and I think he likes me. But something happened with that show to me. I just a lot of civility went out. Anyway, where am I going with this? And I thought sometimes I thought most of the times he had a 3. His show was a 3, but several days a week he would hit an 8 or a 10. And when he was talking about the Michael Savage show, and some of these other shows never got a 2. So I have great respect for the guy. So I've just noticed with any emotion, it's anger. You show he's angry, he's screaming, any emotion. What is this? Neutered men that just, okay, gotta be very calm and very wimpy. And that ain't me. And I get excited about things. For my birthday party. You know, I got this party. I was crazy. I got fireworks. I'm like, yeah, yes. The lead singer of Kansas got up and sang, yes. Are you angry? No. What is going on with you? The men are not allowed to show any emotion. Well, unless it's a weakness or crying or subservience. I had someone that wants to do a show. Maybe I'll have them on to do it. That Laverne and Shirley was the beginning of a psyop where the women are strong, don't have kids, work, right? They want you in the workforce. They don't want you to worry about your kids. And if you have kids, they're going to brainwash them now. And they'll raise the kids. The state will raise the kids. And Laverne and Shirley was the beginning of it. They had mass audiences with Happy Days. And so Laverne and Shirley was 2 strong women. If you remember, all the guys were morons, or to be even the good-looking guy, the big ragu, was to be used. And you use men and you dispose of them. And what really matters is that you work and you're part of the system and pay your taxes. Saw a movie called Nefarious. I want to mention that quickly. I really want to get to our guest. It's a Christian movie. The message is better than the movie, but some big statements are made. And some big statements are made about the LGBTQ, whatever the numbers or letters are now. Some big statements were made, and the devil goes, or the demon goes, I love you. This guy says, this atheist says in the movie, we beat the devil. We can love whoever we want. We can do whatever we want. Love has won. Freedom has won. And the demon goes, oh, yes. Oh, God, so good. Yes, you're so right. You're so right. And for this month that is ending, I went into a store and, I give scholarships twice a year, usually to homosexual men at Central Missouri State University, or what it was for me when I was there. And I don't care if someone's gay. I don't care. This new thing that silence is violence. You've got to go out and march, or you're a monster. I just am a live and let live, love kind of guy. I just don't care what you are. But I went into Barnes and Noble, and I want to support the bookstore here, and I want to buy stuff. And I had about $100 worth of stuff I wanted to buy: a Planet of the Apes book, a new Paul Simon album, and there were some other things I wanted to get. And the Pride display was so aimed at children. And I remember this one book, this kissing contest between 2 boys that my daughters were forced to read. And I went into the principal and I started to read it. And he said, stop, you're making me uncomfortable. Stop, you're making me uncomfortable. You can't read these things at work. I couldn't bring these into any place I've ever worked, and nor could you. These Pride books that are aimed at children. And again, I don't care if you're lesbian. I don't care if you're trans. I don't care. I don't care. But that's not enough. That's not enough. And the display was so aimed at children. And again, I don't want straight stuff, sexuality aimed at little kids. I wouldn't let Ron Jeremy go and talk to a 5-year-older, let alone, well, you know where I'm going with this. August 15th is Rise of the Shock Jock, a 2-hour special on the Vibe Network. I wish I hadn't taken part of, I think. I'm sure, I'm set up to be the fall guy here. I really am. So we'll see. I went to a Taco Bell with no people, all computerized. Welcome to the future. I hated it. And Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues, John Lodge of the Moody Blues, RFK and my wife on Wednesday. I want to talk about that. I have a lot to talk about, but I'm really doing a horrible job here because these guests tonight, wow, the guy rocking my world. I really haven't stopped thinking about him for many years. He's one of the great guests of all time. We're going to go to him. Let's start the show. This is the Lion's Den. I hope you know that before you tuned in. This is where the angels and the devils fight, and they're choosing up sides tonight. Me, I'm part man, part monkey, part mystery. And the angels and the devils are playing tug of war with my personality. Let the show begin. Here we go. Pull the string. Do we have Whitley?
We do. We
My
have
God,
Whitley.
You look fantastic.
Wow, how strange! I'm so glad.
No, you don't look any different than you did years ago. Whitley, I gotta. There isn't a celebrity that you can name, real celebrity, not fake reality TV stars, but there isn't a celebrity you can name that wasn't on my show. And your interview was one of the best of all times. And I just
great.
And, we have a friend with, who our mutual friend is. I don't know if I should name him or not, but I do keep tabs on you.
Name the mutual friend. I'm curious.
Gleason.
Oh, Bob. Oh,
yes.
He's such a cool guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Scariest voice of any human I've ever met.
Absolutely. It's also a terrific editor. I love him. He's a great guy.
So Whitley, you were so far, what were you, 50 years ahead of the world?
Oh, God.
Honest to God.
It's horrible to be ahead of the world because everybody bulldozes you. And then when you're right, they pretend they didn't do it.
The story of my life, brother.
Yeah, I know it.
The story of my life. Everything, all this crazy, oh, wait a minute. The Russians didn't bomb their own dam. Wait a minute. The Russians didn't bomb their own pipeline. And we can go on and, oh, you mean they didn't they didn't test this enough? Wait, you mean, yeah, it's the same shit I was saying. And it goes on and on. But Whitley was an abductee. We're going to have another abductee on. He came out and talked about it. There was a guy named Mike Murphy in Kansas City that came out and talked about his daughter being abducted, and he believed it. And he was the hottest thing when I was a kid on radio, and it destroyed him on KCMO radio. And I just remember oh, my God, I think it's the first I ever heard of that. Whitley, Christopher Walken played you in the movie Communion. You've had a lot of books about your experiences. And Whitley, I think my favorite moment of all the interviews, and I'm sorry I'm long-winded, and I am going to let you talk, and I want you to talk. And No. Believe me, if I was sitting there watching this and listening to this, I'd be like, shut up, let them talk. And I understand that. But let me just say this. When you said that you had an encounter maybe with your alien hybrid child that came to peek in on you, that was one of those moments, the pulled focus, where you thought an alien child came to visit you.
Well, look, this is going to be, and people listening, you might as well accept it. If the government finally lets it be known that this whole thing, abductions or whatever the hell is going on, is real, then they're going to have to also accept incredibly strange stuff, because it is really strange. And that's about the strangest part of it in my personal life. When I first started this, I was a different person. I was very guarded because, I was being beat up all the time in the media. And so I was very careful. I'm not so guarded now because people are a little bit more open. And what you're talking about with this boy is this. He was, we had our cabin in upstate New York, and it was fairly isolated. It wasn't like in the middle of nowhere, but it's private. Let me put it that way. A lot of woods behind it, a lot of woods. And all of a sudden, this kid shows up in the woods. And this is no ordinary kid. I saw him under a tree smoking. And he looked like a kid. He looked like about a 10 or 11-year-old kid. And up the ridge from him, 50 yards maybe, was a grove of pitch pines. And these are trees that blow up if you touch a match to them. They're like inflammable. So I thought, maybe I better go ask that kid to get out of there. But I mean, I don't care whether he smokes or not. It's not interesting to me. But so I walk up to him, and he just doesn't move. I mean, he's sort of sitting there staring straight ahead. And I start to talk to him. And I realize this is no ordinary. This is something weird. And I'm maybe a mile back in the woods. And then suddenly I'm alone with someone who is maybe a kid and maybe something else. I don't know what I'm alone with, but I am definitely aware of the fact that I'm alone with something. So I conclude the conversation and get the hell out of there. Basically, I go back to the house. Then we begin to notice at night, especially when it's still, the smell of cigarette smoke coming into the house. And we find these areas out behind the house where there's hundreds of cigarette butts, hundreds.
Wow.
I mean, they just, whoever or whatever this is, never stops smoking. It's like, what was it? X-Files had the cigarette smoking man.
Smoking man.
Well, I had the cigarette smoking boy, only he was real. And, we're very disturbed by this. Ann and I are. And for various reasons, I'll go into it very simply. After South Park made rectal probe jokes about me on their premiere episode, you might remember that. I don't know. But it was very popular. And I was converted in a week from a guy who was controversial, from whom you would buy a book, to a guy who was an asshole, from whom you would not buy a book. Wow. And my sales, pow, the bottom dropped out of them in a couple of months. So we lost the cabin. So we were leaving. This is October of that, I guess, of 96 or 97. We're leaving. And one of the good things is we're going to leave this weird kid, whoever we assumed he was some sort of semi-feral child from the area. It was kind of an area that was mixed, some area parts of it were really poor. And anyway, so we leave, and we owned a little condo in Texas, in San Antonio, my hometown. So we go to the condo, and we're living in the condo. We're about 4 or 5 days, 6 days. And here's the situation. The condo's on the ground floor. It has a screen porch, and beside the screen porch, there is a little cul-de-sac. And on the other side of that wall is the bed in our bedroom. So this is where this is happening. And I become aware of the fact that there is someone standing in the cul-de-sac at night, which is unbelievably creepy. I mean, so then we smell cigarette smoke. Then we find piles of cigarette butts.
It's back.
Think, holy God, he's followed us.
Yes.
And you understand, I'm not telling you a story. I am stating facts.
Yes, yes.
And so he's followed us. And it's, my wife is furious at me. I mean, she was good with the whole communion experience and very supportive, except when it turned sour, and then it was always my fault. And
welcome to marriage.
Right. Yeah. But you're married long enough, you get to the point where you actually like the fights.
Yeah.
And we enjoyed our fights. We were very good fighters. We didn't fight much, but when we did a good job, and we had a lot of fun.
I get it. Yeah.
You get it.
I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So what the hell are we going to do? Then other people in the condo complex start talking about this bizarre kid that's wandering around in the condo complex. Then the next thing you know, some people are complaining that he climbed up onto the second floor of the complex and tore the spokes out of somebody's bicycle tires on their deck. They kept their bike on their deck. I mean, what is this? Where is this kid's head? And I got a motion sensitive light to drive him off out of that cul-de-sac, because there's no way we can't live with this kid.
Did it work? Did it work?
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah. Didn't he have almond-shaped eyes? Didn't he have alien eyes?
He looked like a sort of a weathered 11 or 12-year-old. He was like a kid who had, well, like, someone who smokes too much.
Yeah.
That's what he looked like.
At
A
12.
heavy smoker.
So but you think he was what? You think he was an alien human hybrid of some kind?
The worst nightmare is, when I had the abduction experience, and, folks don't want to believe this, and I have a funny feeling that as we get into admissions that are happening, that, yes, the U.S. does have alien spacecraft under study, et cetera, and so forth. At some point, the Defense Department is going to start broadcasting the idea that, well, yeah, all this is true, but those abductions never happened, because they can't take it. They can't handle that. They cannot say to the public, we let this happen and we didn't tell anybody because we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Well,
Whitley,
let's stay on the story.
Okay.
I'm going to stay on the story.
Go ahead.
The next thing that happens is people, they call social services, Texas social services, to say that there's something going on with this strange kid that's appeared in our condo complex. And I realize that he's living with these two men behind in a condo that is literally 15 feet from ours across a little alley. And so I call the management to find out who this is, who lives there. And the manager says, well, there's nobody there. It's empty. It's owned by a guy in Houston, but he doesn't use it much. And I think to myself, well, that's not correct. So I say, well, there's someone living in it, so maybe I ought to call him. Let me call him. And so they give me the number, and I call the guy. And he says, well, there's no one living there. I said, well, there's someone living there. 3 people, 2 men and a boy are living in that condo. And these men were, I'm telling you, if you want to see a demon walking, this is, they were incredibly creepy. Okay. So I call the guy, he gets the sheriff to evict them because they don't belong there. Then they're evicted, and before they leave, they go around to the condo knocking on people's doors, trying to sell the guy's furniture to the rest of us. And it's unbelievable, but true. We all knew damn well everyone in the condo knew what was happening. So no one would buy the furniture, of course. They leave. And one morning I'm out in the little garden. I have a little garden in this condo, and I'm screwing around in the garden. And suddenly the boy walks out of the alley between the condos and goes striding off down the street. I never saw him again. And I never saw the 2 men again.
What do you think it was? We discussed at one point, you thought perhaps it was an alien hybrid child that had come back to check up on you.
In my worst nightmares, because of what happened to me, my semen was taken in 1985. He shows up about 11 years later in 1996, 1997. He looks like an 11-year-old boy. So you put 2 and 2 together, and is that my child? And was he so screwed up that whatever the hell these monsters did, they just dropped him in my backyard because they couldn't handle him?
Were they government handlers, you think, with him?
No. Oh, no way. If these are government handlers, we got major problems, even worse than the worst conspiracy theorists say.
Whitley,
Whitley. Go ahead.
No. I had the head of Legendary Pictures tell me, look, you can do our attention span is so short. You can do every single movie. You could remake Godfather. You could remake any Marvel movie, which they were part of. You could remake everything every 5 years. And you could do an origin. You could do why do we see the Spider-Man origin story over and over? He goes, you can do it every 5 years. We don't have any attention span anymore. It's over. Whitley, I want to tell people that this is somewhat common, talking about abductees. But when you came out, there was was it Travis Walton? I remember that name, and I remember you. And you were a very popular writer, and you came out and said, look, I was abducted. And I don't think people understand. It's like being Billie Jean King or something, or Martin Luther King Jr. And the government is now saying, well, yeah, we have had spaceships since the 30s. They're admitting it now. You really, I don't think people realize the rash of shit that you took. And then you talk about South Park messing with you. Well, they mess with everybody. But
Yeah, but it worked when they messed with me.
Yeah.
It didn't help me, it hurt me.
So are you still, look, I have a lot of new information since we last were with each other and in each other's company. I think Whitley Strieber is probably the greatest dinner guest you could have. He is a fascinating man, and I'm going to let him talk again.
You.
But okay. So I think that the spiritualist movement of the 1800s were all seances. Every party had a seance. I'm a Christian. I don't like this stuff, but I know the old magazines, and then blimps started appearing and things in the sky. I think we invited them here. Some people say, oh, well, the nuke, when we set off an atomic bomb, that alerted them. I think it goes beef. I think their visit started in the 1800s. When do you think they started visiting?
I can't answer the question.
Okay.
Because any way you look at it looks right.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks like it started in the 1800s. And yes, there's a case to be made that the seance movement brought something here.
Yes.
But there's also a case to be made that the old gods in the past were something too, that it wasn't the seance movement, but the old temples and the drawing in of magic and all of that stuff excited something real. And there is a case to be made that after the atomic bomb, this all ramped up tremendously. And it has been ramping up ever since. All of those cases work. The thing is about this is you start out thinking nothing about this can be true. But then you get into it a little bit and you think, oh my God, everything about it is true. Everything.
Wow.
What the hell? And it means we do not know what this world is.
All right. So hundreds of interviews. I was behind the scenes a little bit. Actually, more than a little bit, but I can't really go into what I did and didn't do. But I was a little bit behind the scenes of that News Nation special with a government whistleblower. The guy's a Boy Scout. All my sources, everybody in the government says, "Oh yeah, it's real." I don't think he comes out at this time unless they're preparing us for more. Senate hearings are going to happen. Those are going to be covered live on television. That same week, all we heard about was pride stuff. I think the biggest story maybe in human history, other than Christ, maybe World War II, but certainly that we're being visited by something. I believe in demons. I don't think these things are demons. Are they from space? Well, they come from space, or they are in space. I also have come to believe through being behind the scenes with some government sources that the only time we ever see them is when something is wrong. I think there's many more of them in the skies, and we know we can't see them. The people I've talked to that have seen them activated, the minute they come on, they vibrate at a rate that we can't see. So when they capture one and they have it on a base and they turn it on, it vibrates and it folds light and space around it, and you can't see it. It becomes invisible. So when you're seeing one in the sky, it's because they want to be seen or there's something wrong. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I also think there's four kinds, and again, endless interviews I've done. I think there's four kinds of them. I think there's a blobby kind. I think there's the grays, which is what you talk about in the book Communion. I think there's a mantis type, and then I think there's another gray type with the odd-shaped head with the almond eyes that are giants. Those are the four I believe that exist. What are your take on? You saw them; they were horrific and horrifying. And I think the mantis, by the way, aliens send out the little ones, the grays that abducted you. And I don't even know if they're robotic or they're just drones, but and we're going to have another man on to talk to you, Robert Fleischman. If you push them away, they just go right back to their work. They have no feeling. And I wonder if they're even a living thing. Anyway, what do you think they look like, Whitley?
Well, the ones I saw, I chiefly remember these big black eyes, and there were also shorter, dark blue, almost cobalt blue ones that were very fast moving and had these uniforms on them with a lot of flaps and straps and things, pockets. Those I saw together. I have also seen and interacted with tall blonde people who were not nearly as testy as the grays. I have not really interacted with any robotic figures that I'm aware of. And I've had an arc of relationship with these creatures, all of them, starting out not well. I mean, obviously the stories I've been telling are not happy stories, but it got better. And I didn't give up.
How did it get better?
Well, it got better because basically what happened was I started going out in the woods at night early on after, I went through a big, I was not prepared for this in any way whatsoever. I had thought about and was interested in flying saucers when I was a kid, but everybody was in those days. It was all over the newspapers. But by the time I was an adult, it had disappeared into my childhood. Frankly, I didn't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't think about the idea that someone could actually be abducted by aliens, if that's indeed even what happened. I mean, um, so I thought I thought it was in here, and then I realized I had been raped by because my doctor examined me and said there was a tear in my rectum, and I remembered what happened, and so it was a physical experience. Then I decided it was a crime, that I'd been drugged, and I still to this day would not say absolutely no, that's not what happened, because it might have been what happened. And you understand, there's a gap between the flying saucers and what people like me see.
Yeah.
That gap is there is no video of any interactions that suggest aliens, flying saucers, and people all in the same space. So we know the flying saucers exist in their physical things. We know the abductions happen in some way.
Yeah.
But like in my new book, I go into.
Can you hold it up?
Can I hold it up?
Do you have one
I
sitting
don't
around?
even
I'd like
have
to
it
see
in
what
the
it looks
room.
like. Okay.
I don't.
Can you yell at your wife to help out a little? I mean, come on.
My wife's she's passed on, so she can't help out.
What a
But
bastard. And you should have heard what I was going to say when you talked about your ripped rectum.
Well, no, it took me many years to be able to talk about that easily.
But you got it when you hear rectum, you got to say damn near killed him.
Yeah,
Where I'm from.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, but at the same time, they were there. They were there.
Yeah.
Were they
cold? Were they cold to the touch? Were they lifeless feeling?
No, I don't recall touch. I will tell you this. No, I do recall touch. Excuse me. One of them once touched me on the arm, and this electricity went through my body that was really pleasant. I mean, it was really felt good.
Calming.
And people who came to my wife, Anne, thank you. That's it. That's them.
Well, I'll be
Jacques
buying
Vallée and Mitch Horowitz. All those names are big names in my world. Anyway, she would gather people at the cabin, and she would seem to know somehow or another who would likely encounter the visitors at the cabin. And people encountered them there. They encountered them in groups. It wasn't something like, oh, one person sees this, and it was groups of people. It was a very obviously a real thing that was going on there. And one of them, Raven Dana, who had an experience at the cabin, also had this creature put its hand on her arm, and she felt that same electricity going through her body. So there is a sensation, yeah.
Are the eyes? You talk about the men that had the child and demonic. Is there a demonic evil sense to the eyes?
Well, let me put it this way: that these were people. The boy was a boy. He didn't have unusual eyes. If you'd seen him,
I'm talking about the aliens, though. The aliens.
Oh, the ones I have looked into the eyes of that one in the first experience directly. And, it was like looking into a part of yourself that you don't recognize. That would be the most accurate way I could describe it. And it is really very, very difficult. It's a bizarre experience. It's not like anything.
Is it a blinking eye? Is it a winking eye? Is it
no?
move?
I didn't see the eyes blink. Yeah. It was a little bit like looking at you with those damn dark glasses on me, freeing me out.
Well, no, that's funny. I like that. Do we have the communion trailer? Do we want to show that? If we have that, I'd like to show the communion trailer. And Christopher Walken played him in the movie. And I want to talk about the new book, and I want to bring on another guy to join us here. Robert Fleischman started a band called Journey, created save the band, really. And he's been going through this. Whitley, there's a feeling that they are attracted to people that have psychic abilities. A lot of the people that they abduct seem to have some kind of clairvoyance, that's what they're interested in. Sometimes they use psychics. Psychics, I'm not a fan of psychics, but psychics are oftentimes abductees. Also, and I'm going to ramble here just a bit, when you're abducted, it tends to be a lifelong thing. You don't ever stop getting abducted, and it also tends to run in families. So I just asked a bunch of stuff. Any comments on any of that?
Well, my mother supposedly said to my brother, although he changed the story later, that when he showed her communion and she said, "Oh my God, Whitley's written about the little men, not little men, but the little men."
Yeah.
But then when I said to him, "Well, I want to say that," he said, "No, she didn't say that. She said little men." But unfortunately, she'd passed away by the time I didn't get to ask her directly. So
I am sorry about your wife, by the way. I didn't want to come off.
Oh, thank you. Well, she was something else. She was
people enjoyed like I said, I keep tabs on you. People enjoyed you as a couple, and
yeah, we had a wonderful marriage, boy.
How long were you married?
45 years.
Oh,
Not
man.
long enough. I mean, it could have been longer, but
Yeah.
she died at the age of 69 and died young, in my opinion. So
yeah, my prayer is to die a holy death and go before my wife for sure. I don't want to be here, so I get it. I get it. Do you care if we show the trailer?
Of course not. Go right ahead.
Let's show the trailer, and
I can't get out of this.
It wasn't a dream.
There's a group that meets.
oh, she's great.
People who've seen the same sort of things you have.
Which group of aliens abducted you?
Bob, we are not victims. We are participants.
I don't recall them being human.
I'm going to go, my baby screaming!
You people, you sit there, you're in for one big surprise.
Yeah. All right. Were you happy with the movie? I bet not.
Oh, well, of course not. I was the author of the book.
Yeah.
No, I was, yeah, the movie's effective. You know, it communicates the feeling of menace and desperation very effectively. There was a tragedy really with the movie because they didn't have enough money to finish the special effects properly. But I think they did well. You know, and they occasionally actually used my script, which I was very pleased to. An occasional word here and there.
What an odd thing, because I remember I was friends with William Peter Blatty, who had a career as writing kind of cheesy comedies, and then encountered the Exorcist story, and it stuck with him, and he wrote it. You wrote Wolfen, which was a fun movie, and you wrote some other great stuff. And then this event happened, and you went public with it. Do you regret going public with your abduction?
I had no idea it would cause such a stir. It was the
biggest story on earth.
You know, it was something that I thought to myself, you know, it's such an interesting story. I'll write it out. And I was doing research into what might have happened to me before I was thinking about writing a book. And I had gotten into contact with Bud Hopkins, who was an abduction researcher par excellence. And then he'd put me in contact with this famous UFO guy, Stanton Friedman. And I said, I want to know if there's any physical evidence of this at all. I mean, is there anything? Because this is the 80s. I mean, in the 80s, people thought flying saucers were something coming out of people's ears. And, it was all a joke. So he introduces me to a man named Robert Sauerbacher, a metallurgist. And it turns out that Sauerbacher has worked on the materials from Roswell. And he doesn't have a security clearance and any kind of non-disclosure agreement, and doesn't understand the secrecy. And he's very blunt about it on the phone. And he tells me about these materials he's worked on. And then he says, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you write out everything that happened to you that you can remember and send it to me? And I said, okay, I'll do that. So over the next 2 days, I wrote it all out, just not in a whole book, but, in about 5 or 6 pages. And I overnighted it to him via UPS overnight, which was new then. It was just starting out. And the day after that, the UPS guy calls me and says, we can't deliver this because the recipient has died.
Whoa.
He's dead. And that freaked me. That really freaked me. And I mentioned it in communion, but only in passing. And I don't say he died because I was afraid, I had already been beat up pretty badly.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this looks like this might be more dangerous than I could ever possibly imagine.
Whitley,
but that was the genesis
keep
of
going.
the book.
Can I just tell you, I wonder if I want to tell you this story.
No, tell it.
You might enjoy
We're
it.
all waiting, not just me.
Look, I got close to someone who was going to, I think, break a story that would destroy the Bushes, the Clintons, and the Obamas. He had it, and his name was Andrew Breitbart, and we had been working on a TV show together, and I was talking to him every day. And look, my opinion, he was murdered, and
Where did it happen? I'm curious.
I've never seen anything like it. I think it was in Washington, D.C. I forget now, but he went for a jog at 2:30 in the morning and had foam out of his mouth, which is a sign of poisoning to me. And whether it was a drug addict or whatever, and I started doing the radio show in the mid 1980s. And it doesn't matter if it was, somebody you saw with a needle in their arm with blood dripping out on the sidewalk. Well, we got to have it's going to be a couple of weeks. We got to do toxicology and all this. And I got to work around 4:00, and by 5:00 or 6:00, Andrew Breitbart's dead. And he was going to be on my show that day. And why am I telling you this? Well, they announced dead, natural causes, no investigation. And I don't ever recall that happening in my entire career. Dead, natural causes, no investigation. That's how they announced it. And so I made a big deal about it. Others did. A coroner investigated. That coroner was murdered, if I remember correctly. And then I met with his father-in-law, who's a very famous guy who you'll know. You're of this generation. A guy named Orson Bean.
Yeah, I know of Orson Bean. Yeah, he was an actor.
And we had a whispered conversation, and I said, look, I loved your son, and I think he was murdered, and we whispered a few things that I don't want to talk about, and then he was hit and run. So there are certain things that I don't want to talk about. When people tell me radio's free or the internet is free, it ain't free.
No,
and Joe Rogan is fine. He's controlled, and all these other people that I keep hearing about, believe me, they can't tell you the truth, nor can I. I have kids, I have a wife, and I want to live. So what you're talking about, and there's been a lot of murders around the UFO story. A lot of murders.
That's absolutely correct.
So, and a lot of murder, the big joke, I don't know, last week was when that sub went down, Titan, that was visiting Titanic. By the way, I would have done it. Everybody's bashing them. I would have done it. I would have jumped on a sub to go see Titanic. But anyway, the joke was, what did they know about the Clintons? Which was pretty funny. I want to bring on Robert Fleischman. Robert Fleischman has many best-selling records. He gets big checks every month because of the residuals. We saw him for a split second, then he disappeared. He may have just been abducted. and was offered the lead singer job of Asia and Genesis, and was the lead singer of Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and has sung on many hits. Robert, but that's not why you're here today. I know you were very nervous about coming on.
Yeah.
And
Hi, Whitley.
Hi.
So I want to take me away, and I want you two to talk to each other.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
that's
Whitley, I used to follow you on MySpace when that it was happening. I used to
when that
listen
was
to
happening,
Unknown
that's a long time ago.
Can you hear me, Whitley?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. So great. I've always admired what you did. I mean, you're like the Christopher Columbus or whatever of this whole obtuse worldly thing.
Some fool had to step into that breach, and that happened to be me.
Well, you've done a marvelous job, and I know you've quite a lot of hits on it. But I believe it's a general thing. My grandmother was from Chihuahua, Mexico, and I looked into the activity there throughout the years, and I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was I grew up. My took care of me, and I was in bed, and one night my whole room lit up like dodium, and I couldn't understand were so strong because on the other side of the window was just a driveway where a car could possibly go by, and this is in middle of 50s, and there was a 6 or 8 foot picket fence with ivy on it, and the way I couldn't figure out how that light came in, but I never realized it or took any notice of it until in my life, and I don't know, for reasons I got Betty and Barney Hill, and and I just was gravitated towards the subject matter, just going through this subject matter, and had no real reason for it, you know? And then later on, I used to go to this place in Palos Verdes in California. It's off on the ocean, and there's a place called Haggerty's, and it was a church, and kids used to go there at night and drink, and you could go down this ramp that went down into a cove down onto the ocean, and so kids used to go up there, and I went one night with these kids, and we were sitting I was at the edge of the cliffs, and I saw this lights coming out from the water, and I thought this was really strange. So as it got closer to the to the shore, I started going down the dirt road that went cove, and I got to where all the rocks were, and the water's just splashing, and all of a sudden this light just emerged out of the water, and the next thing I know, there are 3 of the little small ones with the big heads and the eyes and the little bit of the pale, and they had the little blue uniforms, and I just flipped out, and I started running up the hill and behind me, and they were behind me, and they were floating off the ground, like about 2 feet off the ground, just floating, going up this ramp. And I ran up these stairs, and I
Robert,
got
you're
to
breaking
the back
up
of the church, and there's this sliding glass window. Oh, sorry.
No, you're
There's
breaking up a
sliding
bit.
glass window.
Did what happened to everybody else? Was everybody frozen?
Everybody disappeared. Everybody was gone, and so I'm jiggling this sliding glass door, and I got my body halfway in, and I'm grabbing the rope from the drapes, and I'm trying to pull myself in, and then the next thing I know, I don't remember a thing, and then I end up at my driveway at my house, And I walk up the driveway. I knock on the door. My dad opens the door, just opens it up. Doesn't say a word. I walk in, and never was that subject ever brought up again. So then I had this this lump on my wrist, and it was just this big lump, and I couldn't understand what it was. And somebody said it was a ganglion cyst, but I didn't think it was. And I used to smash it on the wall and hit it. So then it went away. Then it got onto the bottom of my foot, and I would walk, and it felt like I had a pebble in my shoe. So
this was an implant. This was an alien implant.
So I would get a needle, and I'm trying to dig this thing out, and I couldn't do it because it hurts so much. Then it moved onto the heel of my foot, and it's still there. And if I get a magnet, if you get two magnets and you reverse
they
the
push
poles,
apart.
and you have that magnetic rub. Well, if I get a magnet and I turn it, I can feel the rub on my foot of this thing.
Whitley, do you think you've ever been implanted? It seems to me you brought some implants in. And of course, I want to mention quickly that Steven Spielberg has thousands of these things. He's obsessed with collecting them. And it's well known in the community that, you can sell your implant to Spielberg. And some
I
people
wanted to go to Lear, Dr. Lear. And I believe you went to Dr. Lear, didn't you?
Yeah, but I didn't have it removed. It's right here.
I know it kept moving, right?
Well, what happened was this. I went to not to Roger Lear, but to another doctor in Texas when we were in Texas, because my wife was against my taking it out. She wanted me to figure out what it did while it was there, because things would happen. My ear would turn bright red, and you'd hear this noise, and it was obviously something, but I couldn't make it do anything. And I wanted it out because I felt it's creepy. Hell, and so, anyway,
but the thing is, Whitley, you had an idea of what it was. I didn't have any idea what it was. I was just going on instinct.
And you still have yours in you?
I believe so. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about getting it taken out or getting it X-rayed?
I've I should go to Dr. Ronnie and have
our friend Dr. Ronnie
ultrasound. But so the last incident I had was I was in my bed. I woke up, and there were three of them in my bedroom, and I saw them, and so I got out of the bed and I got one by the shoulder, and I said, "You guys got to get out of here. You guys got to get out of here." And so I led them out the door, and then so they left. I get into bed. I'm laying down, and you know how kids' rooms, when they have the stickers on the walls, and they turn on the lights and they turn them off, and that day glow green.
Yeah,
the whole room, the ceiling, the walls, everything had day glow symbols.
I see those all the time.
And it was just so. I gasped for air, and my wife was sleeping next to me, and I couldn't wake her up. And this was in the room,
Robert,
for about maybe 20 seconds. Yes.
Well, he's gone again. Whatever he's trying to do, it's not working.
Anyway, this went on. It went on for 20 seconds, and it just left. And then the next night, I went to bed, and it popped up again for like 10 seconds and left.
Well, how old were you how recent was that?
Probably 5 years ago.
5 years ago, because that light that you saw when you were a little kid was basically you being identified. And they, for whatever reason, they decided, this is one we want. And they've been with you ever since. Yeah. I think it always starts in childhood, and it often runs in families.
Right.
I suspect strongly that my dad had some connection with this that he maybe wasn't even conscious of.
Right.
And it started in my life when I was a child too. So, you know, you're right on the program. And
Did
that,
you ever have the experience where I was grabbed out of bed by my ankles? Nothing was in front of me. I'm trying to hold on to the sheets and I'm gasping for air. And then the next thing I know, I'm out. And then I'm back in the bed. I wake up and there's a little red golf ball floating in the room. And it just went and then out the door and down the hall.
my God, no, I've never had anything like that happen that I remember. But the other thing
Right.
about this is you never necessarily remember. You don't
Right.
necessarily remember.
Another thing is, I remember you talking about Majestic. Did they
Yeah.
pull that off the shelf? You
Pull
said
what
they
off the
pulled
shelf?
the Majestic, your book Majestic.
Uh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, at one point that may have happened. So much has happened in my life. I can't remember specifically.
Right. But anyway, I have
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Well,
I got this
that,
book. It was what a great book.
well, that
So,
happened. Oh, go ahead.
so later on in life, my wife's friend, she was from Roswell, and I was talking to her, and her father was a mortician, and they called him up for the little coffins.
Glenn Dennis.
Maybe that was.
Yeah, I think that was his name.
And he had a daughter named Beth.
I don't know.
So anyway, she said she had some photos and some documents, but she never got them to me. But
Okay. Nudie.
get
Ralph.
rid of that guy.
Yeah, no, but I want to, come on, guys. Can you not hear me, Robert?
No, I couldn't hear you, man.
Okay, I was yelling. I want to hear what Whitley says. Whitley, what he's seeing these hieroglyphics around his room. You say you've seen them. What are they? Is it the inside of the ship?
Well,
Are
no.
they-
Well, I'll tell you what I see in terms of the hieroglyphics. They're hanging in the window of my bedroom every once in a while, and they're glowing, and they're very complex hieroglyphics. And to be honest with you, I don't have any idea what they are. I look at them, and I hope there's some significance that I'm not aware of consciously. That's all I can say.
Okay, these implants that you both have, do you think they're tracking you, or are they controlling you? Do they make you do things?
No, mine is a research tool, and it's really useful. I've learned
Yeah.
to use it, and I've used it to write all the books since 2015. I learned to use it after my wife passed away in 2015, and I wrote Afterlife Revolution. I wrote
I read that.
a new World. I wrote Jesus: A New Vision, and I wrote them all using the implant as a source of research material.
Well, how?
Well, it works in two ways. One way is that there's a slit that opens up in your eye when you're working. And you don't see it unless you look at against a very white wall, and you'll see it. And there's words racing past, and what it's doing, as has been explained to me, is it's drawing up from your unconscious material that you don't consciously remember and bringing it up into your conscious mind, and then it's like inspiration. And the second thing it does is even more extraordinary, which is that if you think about something you need in terms of research, it shows up in one way or another, incredibly. And when I first started using it, I wrote a historical novel that no one, including Bob Gleason, would publish. But it's an incredible good novel. It's called In Hitler's House, and it's a big, big spy novel. And it's extremely detailed. And I learned to use the implant writing that book. And I would think about, it was a very intimate portrait of Hitler as part of the book. And I would think about, I needed to know, not just his outer life. I needed to know what kind of toothpaste he used and stuff.
And you learned that, and you were told that.
No, I'll tell you how I found out. I was thinking about it, and all of a sudden the screen on my computer turns. I'm Googling this, trying to figure how will I ever find out about his like personal private stuff, and suddenly
Right.
I'm in German Google, and there's the German Amazon is on there, and I click on it, and there's this book, and I get Google Translate, and it translates. It's a book by one of Hitler's valets. And it doesn't say much about it, but I buy the book.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm aware of that book, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So it comes, and it's in German. And then I have no idea how to read German, and it's a physical book, so I can't translate it easily, online. And there's no Kindle. So I that night I'm at a friend's house, and there's a lady there who has a German accent.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said to her, I have this book. It's not very long. I wonder if you'd take a look at it and tell me something about what it says. She says, oh, sure, I'll translate it for you. So I send it to her, and a week or so later, she sends me a translation of the book. And it's all seemingly coincidental, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because that I'm describing one incident of hundreds that work like that.
Is there a way that you can, how would Robert, if he wants to write a song with the space alien help, or whatever these things are, these interdimensional creatures, and hopefully they're not demonic, how would he access it? Can you teach him, or can you tell him how to access?
I have no idea. I know.
Well, you said you look at a white wall or a black wall.
No, it doesn't matter, because you can't read the words. In other words, they're moving too fast. You can just see them. You can't read them, and I wish more people had these, and if they do have them, knew they had them and knew how to use them.
Why would Spielberg be buying these things? Why would he be obsessed with them?
Well, that I didn't know until today.
Yeah.
I thought he was disinterested in this stuff. Someone told me he wasn't interested.
Yeah, and really interested in communism, though. I remember a conversation I had with Robert Duvall years ago. Spielberg really interested in communism, but that's a whole other show. Yeah, I know, unbelievable. Listen,
I'm sorry, but I have to tell you, I find communism incredibly boring.
Yeah, Whitley. I don't even know where to go. Robert has not talked about this stuff before, and I've heard a lot of these stories from him, and fascinating stuff. I'm glad he came on and talked.
Yeah,
obviously knows a lot about you, and he'd be a nice subject for a future book. The guy
Robert,
is, he is rock star. He is rock star royalty, and he's never talked about these things. Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins has also had some experiences, and I don't know what he wants me to say. He has said, and I had an experience, and I think he's gone public with this. And Billy, if you haven't, I'm sorry, but Robert's talked about, and I've talked about, others have talked about it, that you see these things, and they somehow seem to. I had a UFO experience. Billy had a UFO experiences in New Orleans, and Robert as well. And you look, in another place, and you, Whitley, and you look, and you kind of go, oh, okay. And then after a time, you're kind of calm, and you kind of forget about it. And why is it not a big deal? Do you think they have a hypnotic effect on us?
I think they can control our minds if they want to.
Yeah.
And I have been very wary about that, because, what about my mind, and how free am I? And I've got this implant in here, and am I really just fooling myself to think that I'm not under some kind of mind control? Wow. I can't answer that question in all.
I think we may lose our window here. Will we lose our window at 8? Yeah. We're going to lose you. Okay,
Whitley,
guys, I want to show the book again. Whitley, I'll hook you guys two up. I'll hook you up. Whitley, I'll hook you and Robert up. Be glad to do that. Let's show the book one more time. Robert is working on a great new LP that I can't wait for, and two very talented guys. I'm a fan of both these guys. I hope you enjoyed Whitley as much as I did. And Whitley, was it good to see me again and good to talk to me again?
Oh God, yes. I'm glad we got it together.
Let's do this again. Will you promise me now you'll come back on?
Oh, sure.
You're a fascinating guy, Robert. You as well. And
thank you.
Much love. And this is only the beginning of the story.
Robert, there's a hell of a lot more to unpack in your life story. I can assure you.
Well, Whitley, you got to write the book.
I live off of I live off on Lake Michigan, and I can go out at night and look up in the sky and there's something out there, okay? And I can go out there and I'll say, hey, make me laugh. And this light will just start dancing all in the sky. And so eventually I got a laser. I could point the laser at the light, and I would move the laser and it will follow the laser. I've shown my daughter, she flips out. She goes, I got to go back in the house. I've shown several people.
Go ahead.
Many close encounter witnesses can do that. You're not alone, but not that well, I have to tell you. Yeah,
I'm telling you, it is so
involved in this.
Okay, guys, I got to wrap. I got to wrap.
Unbelievable. Anyway, God bless. Thank you very much. And I read after Life Revolution.
Do you believe in a God, Whitley?
And then recently.
Do I believe in God?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, that's it, guys. It's a wrap. Love you. See you next week.
You.
Bless.
Bye.